With that now, I'll kick off and we'll start to get through the details. I mentioned my name is Ray Jaramis. I head up the financial wellness side of Employment here, and really delighted to be presenting our insights on our employee wellbeing survey, which we ran last year. What we did, we surveyed over 1,400 Australians throughout January 2021, and really looking at the working population's current employee, current wellness status. Clearly, we all know what's happened over 2020, so we don't need to go too far into that. But what we wanted to deep dive and understand is how can we be really effective in helping employees thrive in the workplace. And what are the things that employees are wanting from employers? So, talking wellness, we're going into all areas of really personal areas in people's lives. So are there any barriers that we need to be mindful of? And where do we have an implied permission to help? One of the things that we found, and one of the early statistics, which you would have all seen, which we promoted as part of this webinar, was that those with a poor sense of work-life balance were 174% more likely to experience low levels of productivity. We'll get into some of the data today, but what that tells us is that for businesses, you simply can't afford not to invest in wellness. Really important. And with that, absolutely delighted to introduce Alex Hattingh. Alex is our CPO at Employment Hero. And has over 15 years experience in people management and leadership development. Alex has one of those resumes that slight tech issue there. Alex has one of those resumes that I desperately envy with her work history in the tech space. So Alex, thought I might ask, what's one thing that we might not pick up from your LinkedIn profile?
Hey, Ray, great to join you this afternoon, and thank you to everyone for joining. There's a lot you wouldn't pick up from my LinkedIn resume, but absolutely it's the love of my stepdaughter, who I spend so much time with and absolutely love, and also my love of the outdoors and crazy four-wheel driving in the unknown, which I love.
Love that. Fantastic. To introduce myself, I been in the business for near on 6 months now, working financial services for over 10 years, but over that time really focusing on psychology and social sciences and identifying what motivates people to act in different environments and how that impacts their decision making when it comes to money. But clearly, given the topic that we're talking about today, there's applications much more broad than that. A couple of things not on my LinkedIn profile. I've been sleepless for 6 months in that I've got a relatively newborn, and I'm a long-suffering Tottenham fan. So yes, for anyone who's a football fan, we'll take that offline. But yeah, not fun. Look, so talking through the agenda for today, we'll go through what this session is not about. We'll also be exploring the business benefits of a workplace committed to wellness. We'll dive into some of the statistics and stats around what we had found in the survey, exploring the 7 dimensions of wealth. And I think it's really important that we uncover the depth of the conversation when it comes to wellness. Really importantly, a webinar on an afternoon which doesn't create any action is just a good conversation and not much else. So we really want at the back end of the session for all of you to walk away with action points and things that you can actually implement in your business, no matter what budget or what size the business is. And something that I'd like us all to collectively promise to each other, we are touching wellness and well-being, which can sometimes get a little bit sensitive. I'm never surprised by how deep and how heavy sometimes conversations can get in. So let's just all promise to ourselves that we're in a safe space. No silly questions, guys. I'm more than happy to take the conversation where you would all like it to go. Look, first thing, I think it's important to clarify what this is not. And from a financial planner background, I certainly see a lot of what's known as greenwashing in this space, and what that is, it's a real cynical view, but unfortunately there are cases where it's true. And what that is where somebody is badging well-being or wellness on a website with a view that they're really doing the right thing. But actually, when you start to open the bonnet and see what the depth is of what that offering is, that there's not a lot there. Why that's not great is because employers might be onboarding into a business or starting employment with someone and seeing that there's promise of a really well balanced environment, and when they get there, they're sort of set up to fail. So what this session is very, very keenly not doing is setting you up to greenwash or set you up to fail. It's really a session to start a conversation. What we don't want you to do is walk away with the expectation that you have all of the answers on day one, but really it's how do we start a conversation? What's one small thing that we can do next week to start creating a healthier and happier workplace? So let's dive into a little bit of the problem and why we identified wellness as an area that Employment Hero wanted to focus. Wellness, again, information overload. It's so difficult to know where to start. It can be paralyzing at the best of times. And when we started to uncover some of the numbers here, we found that for Employment Hero organizations specifically, each organization on average is paying $599 per month per employee, just based on their team being distracted dealing with personal finances at work. That's one aspect of 7 dimensions of wellness. Clearly, as I said at the start, it's too expensive not to be focusing on this stuff. This comes at a time as well where wage growth is lower than it's been before. And when you concentrate that down to the private sector, which I'm sure a lot of you are in, what that tells us is that if we don't have the same resources that we had previously to pay pay rises and bonuses and a lot of the things that would traditionally be seen to motivate staff, what's the option? And our view is that we can help users spend less in areas that they need to spend money anyway. So that's a big aspect of it, but also having conversations like this where we're helping people make really well-informed decisions in the important areas in their life. Looking at the business benefits as well, not only does it solve a problem, it actually promotes productivity. A PwC report back in 2014 showed that there's a 2.3 times return on every dollar you invest on a healthy workplace. Again, we're listening, we're certainly interested in this space. I will pause for a second. So I'm sure that a lot of you walking into a session like this, or certainly a skeptical view of wellness, is that employees simply want to be paid more. You pay them more, they're happy, they're productive, done deal. The issue is that I don't have the money that I had in years gone by to pay pay rises. It's actually not the case. In our study, we found that only 8% wanted a pay rise as the number one thing they wanted from their employers. Only 8%. It's extraordinary if you actually dig in and think about what that means. What we had found is that workers are actually looking for companies to champion work-life balance by supporting flexible time, working from home, personal days. As I said, I'm a new father now, so for me to have the ability to ebb and flow and move things as I need for my days is so valuable. So much more than any sort of dollar figure that one might immediately think would solve a problem. So what is the Employment Hero approach to wellness? What we didn't want to do, again, is put a wellness offering together that was based on what we thought would make sense, or what was based on what we thought users might want to see from us. Employment Hero is an HR platform designed for all sorts of different things, but for benefits, what we really wanted to do was derive from our users insights. So asking our users exactly what they want from Employment Hero, what are the areas that they're concerned with, and where can we give them biggest bang for their buck? That one of the biggest initiatives there is the wellness survey, and that's one of the reasons why we're really highlighting that as part of our initiatives going forward. Once we know what the insights are and what areas our users want us to focus, the next step for us is to then curate partnerships and areas that satisfy those areas. As an example, there was so much information overload about how to best purchase a property and how to solve all that stuff. There's so many conflicting pieces of information. So we distilled it down into a very simple ebook about how to buy a property for the win, as well as we've got a mortgage broking service that really helps coach people through how to get the right home loan for them. And we create this little ecosystem of wellness. Importantly, it's not us driving what the offering looks like. It's all about the users. Tell us what you would want to see from the offering, then it's on us to go and set that up. So key findings. We surveyed over 1,400 Australian workers throughout January. We've explored the working population's current wellness status, how Australian businesses and employers are navigating the 7 dimensions of wealth in a post-COVID world in an effort to feel better. As I said at the beginning, those with a poor sense of work-life balance were 174% more likely to experience low levels of productivity. It's just extraordinary. Another real key and interesting finding that we're spending a lot of time diving into is that working harder doesn't lead to working better. Our data shows that employees experiencing work-life balance, productivity, and burnout are strongly connected. And if you think about like you and your personal life, sometimes it's difficult to detach yourself from you and your sports team, to you being a family person, to you being a professional at work, to you being a son. So, you know, all of the different roles that you play in society, sometimes it's difficult to disconnect those. And actually, we were talking about that in preparation for the session in only 10 minutes ago. You know, it's very, very easy for the worlds to interconnect, and you know, it's a natural part of being a human. Workers with poor work-life balance were 67% more likely to feel burnt out from their work, and those with a sense of poor work-life balance were 174% more likely to feel low levels of productivity. So it does make a lot of sense to focus in this space. Workers who felt productive were 18% more likely were 18% more likely to feel that their employer cared about their wellness. So clearly, just starting a conversation, even if it's not the most perfect solution, if your employers can see that you're committed to finding a solution and working with them, that there's clearly a benefit there, which is really lovely. A couple of other key numbers here is that workers who felt burnt out are 39% more likely to have an employer that doesn't care about well-being, and workers with a good work-life balance were 28% more likely to have an employer that cared about well-being. So again, a couple of really interesting insights there. As I move on to the next slide, I do encourage you all to ask questions at the back end. We've got Alex here, and every time I get to do a session with Alex, I'm desperately keen for the audience to get as much juice out of her and her experience as possible. So please do keep them coming in. If an employee did not feel on track with their financial goals, they were 70% more likely to rate their work-life balance as poor and 104% more likely to state their productivity as low. Now, this is really interesting. In financial planner land, you would instinctively think that more money is more, but actually it's not the case. There were studies done around the happiness and at what point money stopped making people happy, and it's not much higher than the average salary in Australia. That you know, for every dollar that you earn over a particular level, and it wasn't dramatically high. I think it was between $70,000 and $90,000. That for every dollar above that level that didn't satisfy a core need, the happiness utility of that dollar will continue to diminish and diminish and diminish. So what that tells us, it really comes down to making sure that people are making really well-informed decisions with their money. No single element creates wellness. During the pandemic, unwellness crept into everyone's lives, causing burnout, exhaustion, and general life dissatisfaction. Financial stress was dialed up, mental health clearly took a hit, and physical health was challenged by COVID itself, and activity limitations and relationships were tested under anxious conditions. For us, it's a really opportune time to dig deep, and if we are going to rebuild a new society, a different way of doing things, let's do so from a well-informed decision and make sure that we're really getting to the core of what people would like to see, instead of just doing what we did in 2017, 2018, that set us up for you know, where we landed in 2020. Workers are looking for companies to champion work-life balance by supporting flexible working from home days and personal days. Look, this is an enormous one, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a huge investment on your side. There are a lot of businesses that I see that they really promote charity days and offer work initiatives where if there's a particular employee who has a real belief in a charity or a cause, or has been affected by something, that the whole company gets behind them, and once a year they commit to spending a day out of the office and focusing on that. That really is seen to be really, really, really valuable, and often isn't much effort or much work or much cost for businesses to play in those spaces. So something to think about. Conscious as well, there's lots of stats and lots of data that we'll be going through today. So we will be sharing the ebook where you can deep dive into exactly how the research materialized. And as always, do ask us questions and drop us an email if you'd like to have additional conversations. So the dimensions of wellness, a really big part of wellness was, again, there are so many different ways there are so many different meanings that of wellness to different people. What wellness is to me is different to Alex, is different to a lot of you on the panel. So what we didn't want to do again is do what we thought people wanted to see, but actually to ask. I think, if you get wellness wrong, it's very easy to shoot holes at it. So it was really important for us to have a holistic view and then a process to identify which in those areas we really need to focus on. There's the 7 dimensions of wellness model. This is something that I did at university when we were looking at this space, and it really was a holistic way of dealing with things. So physical, emotional, intellectual, spiritual, environmental, social, and occupational. Clearly, you can see there that we're covering off a much broader section than simply mental wellness or financial wellness. This is actually a tool that coaches use. So not anything for today, but what coaches would do is they would get each segment and break it out of 10. So say, for instance, recreational wellness, we'll score ourselves out of 10 on that. Let's say we scored a 6. The coach, a life coach, would then sit down with that person and say, okay, you've scored yourself a 6 for recreation. Tell me, for you to score a 9, what would you need to see in your life change to make that happen? And then you start exploring, okay, what can you do? What's within your control? What are the things that can happen right now to help you go from a 6 to a 9? So it's a really interesting tool. It's quite popular in the coaching industry. We've adopted it for our own purposes here. But again, I think it's interesting to get us all understanding the breadth of what wellness means. So what we're going to do now is dive down into each area and just find out how the respondents scored. For physical wellness, we found that 55% of employees are happy with their overall physical health. Importantly, the areas that they valued most in terms of helping them improve their physical health and wellness was provide a discount on gym memberships, personal training or yoga sessions, and ergonomics from working from home as well. Alex, I'm conscious I've been talking for a little bit. Is it maybe I can ask you, at Employment Hero, once a week, we have a yoga session that we do that survives the pandemic. What spurred that on?
Definitely when we pivoted to work from home, we had to give up our on-site yoga. At the same time, we were diversifying in terms of where we were hiring people. So we were going remote first and hiring people, not just in Australia, but all over the world. So we adopted an approach where we were doing online yoga, and we were also archiving that so anyone could do it online in their own time, which made a big difference to employees, just to have that access to someone professional to show them how to do yoga, especially for places like Melbourne that went through serious lockdowns and the inability to access anything like that for free.
Absolutely. At the moment, we've got a fitness challenge where collectively we're all walking our way from Sydney to Singapore. So kind of a really cool thing for us to chat to each other over the weekend, something that's not directly work related. I know that I find that I'm talking or responding to comments from people that aren't in my immediate team. So it's a nice way to really connect on a personal level. Mental, so here 59% of employees are happy with their overall mental health. Look, I think the topic of mental wellness is pretty well established at the moment. So let's go straight into the recommendations. Providing an EAP, an employee assistance program, was really highly valued by the respondents as ways to improve. Encourage healthy balance, work-life. We've said work-life that many times now that hopefully it's starting to ring in our ears and is something that we can start to think about. Providing regular one-on-ones. This is a really important way that is low cost for you to help improve your employees' mental well-being. At Employment Hero, we all have one-on-ones with our managers, and I can't tell you how much I value the clarity that gives me in my role, and an opportunity to vent or talk through any concerns or problems or doubts. Just having the ability to do that, it goes for half an hour, it's every week. Not a big time investment on the business for a one-to-one, given the output that comes off the back of it. So if you're not checking in with your team regularly, good communication, really important. And more support on mental wellness initiatives. We had International Women's Day just now, and before the session, I was busily looking at the calendar for what other days we might have in 2021. Perhaps there are opportunities for you all to dive into the calendars and see if there's one that might hit a chord with your business there. Financial wellness, 51% of employees are on track with achieving their financial goals. The key recommendations there that came off the back of this was discounts on products like life insurance and financial services and educational sessions. For us, we run a whole bunch of different things. Not only do we negotiate discounts with private health insurers, for smaller businesses especially, it might not always be feasible to go to the private health insurers directly. You could certainly work with an employment hero and become part of our community and access discounts that way. But at the same time, it's not always expensive to get a financial services professional to do an educational session on superannuation, savings for the win. We've got the end of financial year coming up. Perhaps there's an accountant who who might be happy to spend 45 minutes with the team and just talk about, we're all working from home now. I'm sure that impacts the way that we can get our tax deductions coming through. So certainly an easy, low hanging fruit and timely around financial wellness. Looking at relationships. So interestingly, this is one of the higher areas. So 63% of employees feel supported in their personal and professional relationships. The key recommendations from that are better reward and recognition, better communication, increased honesty and transparency. Alex, I know for Employment Hero, we have a huge push culturally to do what we call shout outs. So maybe it's helpful to share with the audience exactly what that means.
Yeah, so we are fortunate to have on our system a mechanism to shout out, both do just a general shout out to someone on another team, as well as to do a Values Champions Award. And then it gets pushed through as a notification to let everyone in the company know that, hey, Ray, you've done a great job on the webinar today. And everyone gets notification that Ray's done a great job. And it's a really good recognition, especially in this remote world of work where we're beginning to work from home and also see the advantages of remote work where you can hire anyone in Australia or across the world to work for your organisation. It's really had a lot of uptake and it's been fantastic.
Great. And I would also call out as well that I think there's a lot to be said for getting feedback, positive feedback, and certainly for in human resources or when we're managing people, it's very easy to get down the path of providing feedback where we feel that we can make improvements or change a process or something like that, but actually turning back to somebody to say, hey, you did this thing, yeah, cool, it's part of your job, but actually you smashed that, well done. That really makes a big impact on people's lives. So, if you have Monday morning stand-ups or check-ins or whatever your cadence is in your business, think, is there 5 minutes that the team could spare just to collectively say thank you to those in the team who went that little bit further? Moving right on to careers, 71% of employees agree that that work that they do is meaningful to them. The recommendations around how we can create more meaningful work and certainly careers is opportunities for career progression. And I think I spoke about clarity a little earlier and the one-to-ones that I get with my direct manager, talking from a personal perspective. But career progression is, I think, paramount so that you don't feel like you're on that hamster wheel of just grinding every single day, that there's actually a sense of progress or momentum or moving forward. Really, really valuable. No micromanagement. Look, I perhaps that's a bit of a personal management style, but I would say that for those that instinctively feel like they can add the most value going hands-on, one approach that avoids micromanagement is being very, very clear in the outcomes that you want from a particular task. So rather than being busy and just sending a vague email and then not being happy with the outcome and then micromanaging the way through, just be really, really clear, invest 5 minutes articulating what you want, read it impartially, maybe at a later date, and hopefully you'll find that tasks get done in a more comprehensive way. More training, really easy to overlook, really, really important. Training can mean all things to all people. We have a learning management system in Employment Hero, which is fantastic. I know when I onboarded, I dived straight into Google Sheets Advanced just to do some number crunching and analysis. I absolutely love it. I'm sure there's easy ways that you could be doing training as well. For our sales team, I think, Alex, we have for those in sales who are absolutely demonstrating what we would ideally want to see, that they've got the opportunity to talk with the team more broadly about what they've adopted, what they've baked into their day to make them successful in their role. The final piece of career wellness is pay rises, which we know for 8% is the number one priority. Spiritual, look, this is a bit of a newer one, I suppose. 61% of employees are happy with their personal development. The key areas that, or key recommendations around spiritual wellness is meditation sessions or yoga, which we do at Employment Hero. Look, this is a really big one. The ability to participate in religious holidays. The way I translate that is just being sensitive to individual religions, individual cultures. In Australia, we're relatively secular. So if you have a culture or an environment where team members are feeling free or liberated to talk about or participate in their cultural celebrations, then certainly would go a long way. With that, Alex, look, you're an absolute maestro in this space. Perhaps we can talk about how HR managers can use this information in practice.
Absolutely. Thanks, Ray. All of those insights were incredible. And it's so nice to have the research insights to kind of confirm what you may have been thinking internally. So how can we use this information as HR people or small business owners or an office manager, whoever you might be, to implement useful things that don't cost you a whole lot of money? It's not hard. So I'd start by saying that the first thing you can probably do, I think the first thing is the manager slide. Next slide, Ray. Yeah, so supporting employee wellness. So actually the first thing that we have picked out here is the employee assistance program. Next slide. So we have found, certainly at Employment Hero, that an employee assistance program as an external program that our employees can use to help their health and well-being has been absolutely phenomenal. So what it is basically a confidential service that you invest in that provides counselling and support service to your employees. So would you believe that 1 in 2 managers believe their employees are immune to mental illness? Yet the statistics show that 20% of Australians aged 16 to 85 will experience some kind of mental illness this year. Now, these stats were before COVID-19. So for an employee assistance program, certainly from my perspective at Employment Hero, for as little as $5 per employee per month, we're able to provide our employees with this service to professional psychologists at a confidential nature that we pay for, again, for $5 per employee per month, for them to use for whatever kind of support it might be. And during COVID, I personally had a lot of really good feedback from employees, whether they were dealing with anxiety from being an expat, anxiety from being in lockdown, anxiety from having older people around, and just the general anxiety of not knowing what was going to happen. It was really helpful. So my number one tip is to invest in an employee assistance program, because it really does give your employees that outlet to go and talk to someone that they can trust and who is a professional. Next one is anyone who's on the call. It's about you as a manager showing your support. So first up is to make sure your employees can work productively in their current environment. So just check in with them if you're still doing work from home. Can they do their work effectively at home as in their workplace? And if they can't, what can you provide them with that they can't? Now, if you've gone back to work, also ask them if they're happy being back in the workplace, or what you might call the office. We've reverted from that terminology ourselves because we've gone to a remote first organization. You might find that some of your employees are really unhappy going back to a 9-to-5 workplace. Next up, in terms of manager support, is all about what we call one-on-ones. And Ray has referred to this in his conversation today, in feeling a really safe place where he has this set up with his manager on a weekly basis. So for those who don't know, a one-on-one is a scheduled time in your calendar and also in your mind map for an open-ended discussion between you and your employee. So it's not about being a tactical meeting or a place for just going over reports. It's all about coaching, mentoringship, and even, as Ray mentioned, allowing venting. So it goes way beyond a one open door policy and dedicates time on a regular cadence to communicate and connect. And you don't have to use the time in your calendar if you have half an hour or 45 minutes scheduled every week. You don't have to use that entire time, especially if you're connecting daily, for example. And you can also mix things up and say, you know what, Ray, let's go for a walk. Let's not be on video today. I'll pick up my mobile, you pick up yours. Let's go for a walk around our own neighborhoods, and you will be really surprised at how it mixes up the conversation and the connection between you and your employee, and that relates back to the mental wellness of people. So how do you start a one-on-one? We have a great template in Employment Hero, which Ray kind of adhered to, which really helps to not just help the discussion go and facilitate the discussion. It helps to keep a place that really takes a record of the discussion. So you're not having to take notes every week around what you're doing. You've got somewhere where you can record things during the week as a manager or an employee. So if you don't have a tool like Employment Hero, have a shared document where you are asking an employee how they're feeling, what's on their mind, where you're asking them around what are their roadblocks and how can you help them. Now, it's really important as a manager that you hear someone, because we all have our own blocks as to what we might be hearing. So what's next is to be the facilitator of solutions. So confirm what you've heard first as a manager, because sometimes we don't interpret things correctly. It can be really good also to disclose your own weaknesses. I've certainly found this helpful when someone else has found a roadblock, or they might be feeling like they're not meeting expectations. If you share some way in your career where you've stumbled across something, you're really opening the door. So Ray, I hear you, and I've stumbled in my past when I've come across this, and here's where I've failed, and here's where I've learned. But always make sure you're unconditionally on the side of your team member. Make sure you hear positive intent and give them opportunities for growth, and always respect them as a person, not just someone who does things. And honesty is always the best approach. So if you're not a manager, this slide, how to best leverage your one-on-one. So in terms of doing it, set aside time to organize your conversation. Again, if you don't have a tool that has a one-on-one template where you've got those spurring questions around how are you feeling, how are you going, and what are your roadblocks, create that shared document so that you're not scribbling notes during the week and scrambling around when you have that one-on-one time with your manager. You've got it all sorted out, and be really honest, and try to be honest in layman's terms. As a manager, they can't interpret what you're feeling, and they could be really busy. So make sure you speak your heart and you are vulnerable. You are saying, I've got roadblocks with this person, or I've got roadblocks with this idea, and ask for their help. Allow yourself to be vulnerable if you're reporting up to someone. Next is flexible working when it comes to wellness, which we've found is absolutely massive. Before COVID, 45% of Australians rated flexible working as the top reason for accepting a role. Now, this was prior to COVID changing our world. So flexible working empowers us enormously. It allows us to do exercise during commute time, drop off, pick up, meditation, helping people with our kids with coaching, for example. But if you're a manager or someone who owns a business, you absolutely have to set an example. So keep to your own calendar. If you're leaving early, let people know that you're leaving early, or potentially logging off early if you're working from home to go and pick your kids up from school or attend a soccer coaching match or a soccer match. It empowers the rest of your team to go and do the same thing. And in this new remote world of work, if we're not doing this of owners as businesses and as people managers, we will start to lose talent because there are so many businesses out there doing it. The next one is to offer some simple things for work-life balance, wellness, and physical well-being. And that's to offer yoga or meditation or even personal training. So when we talk about mindfulness, it's often very new to people. It's all about paying attention to the present moment with purpose, with kindness, and curiosity. And research has shown that it can really boost mindfulness. So it shows that within stressful situations, you react thoughtfully rather than react. You react with resilience, and by providing this to your employees, you're helping to give them mental strength. So how do you do this if you don't have a budget? Do what we've done. Ask your employees if there's anyone who's hugely passionate about yoga, who's willing to do an online weekly class that you can record and people can do on their own time. Some people want to do it at 6 a.m., some want to do it during their lunchtime break, some might want to do it at 7 p.m. It can be done via Zoom so everyone can join. And then you can also option to people, if they live in the same area, they can get together. For example, we have some people in the inner west that get together on a Friday morning to do the Bay Run together. They don't do a run, they do a walk, they catch up together because they live in the same area. And it's a really great way for them not just to connect as humans, they're getting a good exercise session in as well. So a free yoga session, we will send this out. This is recommended by our own employee assistance program, and it's a free 20-minute yoga session that's over Zoom, which they highly recommend on YouTube. The next point is to encourage your team to take regular breaks. You'd be really surprised at how many people during COVID and as we work remotely don't feel that they have the permission to do this. And it's not just the permission, it's just that you can easily lead to burnout or just feeling like you have to be online 24/7. I'll be the first person to say it happened to me during COVID lockdown when it first started. I didn't feel that I had to be online 24/7. I wanted to be because I really wanted to be there to support our employees. It was winter. I remember it was March 10th when we first logged onto remote work. However, before we knew it, it was winter and I'd be at my screen early in the morning. Before I knew it, I'd look out the window and it was dark and it was evening and I couldn't go out and have a break. And it took its toll. So as a leader, you all need to be giving your people permission to take breaks regularly. They'll be more productive, they'll be happier, and they'll be more engaged and committed. So how can you make sure people take regular breaks? As I mentioned, it's that psychological safety. It's giving people the message that they need to take breaks. So put time in your calendar as a leader for you to be taking breaks. Put time in your calendar to be doing things for your family or for yourself, whether it's attending your child's soccer game or coaching, picking up from school, whether it's doing a yoga class or going for a walk or a run during lunch or before work. Just lead by example. You'll be really surprised at the impact it means and makes on your team. The next one is can you provide an educational workshop on mental health? Now, while you might think this might take a lot of money, you'd be really surprised at how you can do this fairly easily. You can do it by asking Ray to come in, for example, or you can invest in your employee assistance program. Ours, for example, Acacia, would provide someone to us to provide an online workshop in terms of education around mental health. There are also incredible free resources around, which I'll go on to on, I think, the next slide. On another slide, I'll do that. You can empower a really good culture of transparency and vulnerability as well. There's been a lot of media coverage recently. Brene Brown, you've got also powerful Netflix, next slide, around vulnerability. But a lot of us, especially in small businesses, ask what is vulnerability and how does it actually help mental well-being? So vulnerability is the emotion we feel when we're uncertain. So when we feel we're at risk, and it's about exposing ourselves. So it is really uncomfortable. If I can put it into a personal scenario, I would say it's going back to that dating world where you're kind of questioning yourself and you're saying, do I tell this person I love you? Do I risk that? And do I expose myself? It's really tough. So it's a weakness. We're raised to be brave as individuals by our parents. So you have to allow yourself to be seen, and that is being vulnerable. So why is it important to well-being? It's important because you're able to build trust through psychological safety. You're showing empathy as a leader. And you're allowing yourself to be open so people can understand if you're open. Oh, wow, Alex, you're being open. That means I can be open as well. I actually can be vulnerable and tell you that I'm feeling uncertain during COVID. I'm feeling uncertain about myself in my role. Can I deliver what I need you to deliver? Actually, no, I can't because I'm having some roadblocks. You're opening that door to your employees to say, I'm having a few roadblocks. Please help me. You'll be really amazed if you show your own vulnerability to your people, how open they will be at showing their own vulnerability back, which will help their own mental well-being. The next one is championing reward and well-being, which I have to say I have experienced at an exponential level at Employment Hero since COVID hit. And that's all about how important reward and recognition is to human beings. Would you believe the deepest craving is for us to feel appreciated? And not just that, at the end of the day, we're going to feel less motivated if we're not feeling recognized by what we do. Research has also shown that for every piece of criticism that we receive as an employee, 6 pieces of positive reinforcement are needed to counteract that one piece of criticism that we receive. And a case shows that 52% of employees in Australia feel more productive at work when they feel praise and recognition. And only 14% of businesses actually give their managers the real tools they need to recognize their teams. So how can you do it? If you don't have a budget, shout outs are really simple, and use your one-on-ones and team meetings to recognize people and reinforce your values and behaviors. A really good example is to start your weekly team meeting with celebrations. What a better way to celebrate other people in the team or wins. Ask for your own people to celebrate what their biggest success of the week is. They're then recognizing themselves and you can reinforce it. We've also found that handwritten cards are a great tool, especially as you work remotely. How incredible to get a handwritten card through the mail from someone at your work while we're working remotely. Also, if you have a weekly, monthly cadence of an all company forum where you communicate, introduce a shout out channel where people just recognize other teams during that all company communication. Now, make sure you're also recognizing milestones. This is so important too while we're working virtually and remotely. Anniversaries, birthdays, anything that recognizes a milestone. It might be delivering a project, and make sure you recognize every person on that project. So make sure you check in with everyone to make sure no one is left out. And if you have the budget, try and establish a program based on your values, which we have. It's a small one, which is $10 per employee per value. However, those dollars add up and they do mean something to our employees. This is an example of our handwritten cards and milestones, our anniversary awards, and You're a Hero card, which managers can just simply write hand notes on and send them off to employees, and we can give them their addresses and we send them off to them. The next one is to provide, as I mentioned earlier, free resources and apps. I can't go far enough to say that if you don't have the budget, there are places like Calm, Headspace, and Smiling Mind. They're such great way for beginners. And again, giving your employees that psychological safety and knowing that they can throw in their calendar 20 minutes on Headspace at 4 p.m. on a Thursday, then you're giving them the permission to look after their own well-being. While you may not have the budget to invest in something specific to your company, you're providing them with that space to throw it in their calendar that they're going to use Headspace on a weekly basis and no one can bother them during that time. And you're giving them the space to actually use the app to do that, to meditate and actually use their mental wellness to their advantage. Work-life balance is the last one, which is really hard and even harder in this remote world that we've been thrown into. We need to make sure employees don't feel like they have to be on 24/7. Burnout is real and we are seeing it across the globe. So you need, as a manager, a business owner, whether you're overseeing people, you are responsible for signs of burnout. So look out for visual signs. It's really hard in this remote world where we're all on video. Just look out for someone that might not be looking like themselves. Make sure you have those weekly one-on-one check-ins where you're asking someone, how are they? And listen to them. If there are any signs that they're burning out, make sure you give them that permission to use an app, to spend time with their family, to exercise. And also ask yourself, are your team working overtime every day? You need to check in on them. Are your employees feeling stress? Do you think they might be less engaged? And is there an increase in people taking days off, which is always a really big sign? And really importantly, one of the things I've certainly learned very much from COVID is putting on your own oxygen mask. You have to be aware that if you're suffering from burnout, you're no good to anyone. So if you are feeling burnout, talk to your manager, reach out to your own employee assistance program, your family, and your friends. Also, there are fantastic free resources like Beyond Blue. If you need to, talk to your GP about a mental health program, to speak to a psychologist, and take annual leave. Don't be ashamed if you're suffering from COVID, burnout, or working too much due to the remote world of work. Other ideas. So what have we done here at Employment Hero? We, as I mentioned, kick off our weekly meetups with a celebration. So each team will celebrate, whether it's a personal celebration or a work celebration. Again, it doesn't have to be work. It just gets people in that kind of mind frame of celebrating something and not starting off with the negatives or the barriers or the venting. You really get the team going off to a good place. Feedback is huge. Ask your employees, send out a questionnaire that asks them about how they're doing. We have a wellbeing questionnaire on our own platform that will probably send a template out to everyone on this webinar. We found ours really fantastic and so insightful during COVID. Have people put in their calendar to take breaks. It's really important. It gives them the permission to do that. And social connection. Yes, we're in a remote world and we're on videos and Zoom and Google Meetups and Teams all the time, but we're still not socially connected. So how do we do this? Remind people that they can take it on themselves. We have people meeting up in locations that are similar to themselves. I mentioned the Bay Run in the Inner West. So encourage people to meet up in their own locations close to home. They'll find that social connection. So the last question is, how do you get buy-in and get started? I know a lot of you have this question because it's a big challenge. How do you do it? Through all of the statistics that Ray showed you earlier today, show your leadership team the importance of well-being through all of that external data, research, insights, and statistics that show you how important well-being is on every single one of those scales of the well-being wheel. And assess the results and present them. The most important thing is, if you survey your employees, you can't keep those results to yourselves. You have to let everybody know what's been heard. And if you can't do what's been asked, just be super honest. You guys have asked for yoga twice a week. Unfortunately, we don't have the budget for that. We've heard you. So here are some great online free resources to help you out. You're showing people you've heard them, and you're providing them with an answer and a solution as well, which is really fantastic. And then conduct another survey to see how you're going. Probably 3 months after you've conducted the first survey, just check in and say, have we delivered, have we not? And I think that's it for everything. In terms of takeaway and next steps, we will get you the Wellness at Work report and make sure you get leadership buy-in. As I said, refer back to those stats from Ray, survey your employees, and simply just get started.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Alex. We have 8 minutes left. So I've got a bunch of questions here, but for anyone who has any lasting questions, please pop them through now or forever hold your peace. A question that came through towards the start of the session was, how do you create a culture of getting leaders or team managers to actually do the recognition shout outs using Employment Hero? While you think through that, Alex, one thing I would say as an employee of Employment Hero, it's really awesome to see that all leadership are on the same page, and you guys, the leadership unit is at a united front. So everyone clearly buys into it, and I see that trickle down to the team. But how did you create the culture in the early days?
Yeah, look, Kate, I think one of the really important things from the get-go, from even interviewing with Employment Hero, was the fact that as the head of people and culture, you're not the only person that owns people and culture. Every single manager and leader in the company does own it, and you need to make that really clear with your seat at the table. And then you just need to make it really clear and reminding leaders and managers at every opportunity you get, start recognizing people because you're setting the example. And more than that, start recognizing people outside your only team so that you get that cross-pollination, especially as we're working remotely in this new world. It's really important to make sure we don't allow silos to occur and that we are actually recognizing people outside our teams. It's vital, and it's really incredible once you see leaders start to do this and do shout outs and recognition. It just cascades from there, and it's really quite incredible. I've just been so proud to see it filter down in our own organization, especially as we started to work from home and remotely.
Fantastic. We had a question. Our business is looking at running our very first engagement survey, our wellness check-in over the coming weeks. So for that individual, firstly, awesome work. Congratulations on taking the first step. Any tips? So I might jump in on that one. We in the very early days, for a free tool, especially if you're not an Employment Hero user, Google Forms is a low cost or free, easy way to do it. Alex, within the platform, we do have the happiness survey. How often do you do that? How do you, what sort of responses do you get? Do you find it helpful?
Absolutely. So we pivoted during COVID and we actually implemented a wellness survey, which is part of the custom surveys. So please just reach out to me if you need to know how to trigger that if you are a customer of Employment Hero. And that's all about wellbeing specifically. And it's a custom survey asking people how they're doing and how you can help. It's a really fantastic survey and gives you a lot of, I guess, trigger points as to what you might be able to do better. And again, if you can't meet something, make sure you read out your results and let people know when and where they can't do what you may not be able to do. Other than that, we can send you a template if you don't have Employment Hero, so you can use a free tool such as SurveyMonkey to use those questions to ask your employees how they're doing from a wellbeing perspective.
There are two aspects that we ask at Employment Hero. One is to score yourself out of 10, which clearly has a lot of value because it becomes easy to track how the business is, the temperature check over time. But one of the things I know Alex certainly champions in the business and is really incentivized is that we don't just provide the score, we spend a couple of minutes talking about the reasons why. So that when there is a change, or if there is something that needs to be addressed, positive or negative, it does give leadership an opportunity to start addressing those areas. We've got a couple of minutes to go. I'm just going to launch a poll. Would be delighted to learn whether or not today has met your expectations as I go through the final questions. Could Employment Hero provide access to a series of mental health workshops or webinars as part of the EAP? Julia, I'll pass that one on to you to deal with offline, which would be awesome. But we'd be delighted. Any excuse we have to talk more in this space, we will absolutely run towards. So that sounds great. Also a request for the custom wellness survey, if possible, Julia.
Yeah, we can send that up.
Great. And at the same time, a copy of the 10 low-cost ways to boost employee well-being has been asked for as well. Look, we do have a question here on what's involved in establishing an EAP. Alex, do you want to take a stab at a 30-second, 60-second
Oh, absolutely.
response?
So it's about, first of all, getting buy-in from your leadership team or your CFO or whoever is involved in terms of budget sign-off. An employee assistance program is investing in a service essentially where you pay per employee for a certain number of sessions for any employee to use the service. And that's anything from a psychologist who's a professionally, obviously professional and a counsellor, down to anything from legal advice or whatever it might be. So you can choose how many sessions you would like to provide an employee. You could choose 3 sessions a year, 4, 5, 6. You're then charged per employee per session, for example, $159 per employee per session. It's obviously confidential so that you maintain your employees' confidentiality and they are able to use that service, and then you get charged on a monthly basis for the use of that service. I can't speak highly enough of the feedback I personally have been given, especially during COVID, for our own EAP provider called Acacia, and this is not in any means meant to be a plug for them. However, I had so many people reach out to me, and a lot of them were expats who did not deal with COVID well. Understandably, they had family back home who they weren't sure about. They were stuck in a foreign country without family. They didn't know what was going to happen to their jobs in Australia. And that anxiety and uncertainty led them to reach out to our EAP service, and they got some great counselling as a result. I can't speak highly enough of the ability to be able to say to someone, especially as a manager, when you're not equipped with those professional skills as a psychologist yourself, to be able to say, do you know what, Alex, reach out to this number, have some professional counselling and let me know how it goes. It just gives you that ability as a manager to allow someone to have that professional support.
Brilliant. Thank you for that. Look, a couple of questions. I think these are more for me, just around ways to assist around business tax, as well as what my role entails and some of the financial wellness initiatives. My details are there, wellness@employmenthero.com. I'd be absolutely delighted to book some time in and share exactly what we're working on, which is really exciting, as well as that are our other contact details. But do keep an eye on your inbox. We'll be sharing all of the little nuggets from today, and we appreciate your time on the afternoon, and yeah, look forward to seeing you next time. Alex, thank you so much as ever. You've been so insightful, and really appreciate your time.
Thanks, Ray, and thanks everyone for joining. Hope to see you next time.